let's get started. So, once again, hello everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Tariffs and Their Impact on the Solar Industry. Thank you very much for joining us today. Um, I'm Tatiana, Inventory Manager from A1 SolarStore. And for those who is new to A1 SolarStore, it's a marketplace with a wide range of products starting from solar panels to roofing supply, generators, batteries. We ship directly from the manufacturers and have over 70 fulfillment centers across the United States. Um, yeah, we know that many of you have questions about what's happening right now in the market with all this tariff situation, especially with rising prices, policy changes. And that's why we invited two experts from Hounen Solar, an American solar brand who can help us, unpack the situation and offer some much needed clarity for that. So I give the floor to our guests today. So it's Bill Bentley is from Hounen Solar, sales manager. He brings deep experience in the US solar distribution and pricing strategy. So welcome, Bill. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tatiana.
Yeah. And we also have Fabian Alva joining us today. He leads marketing management at Hanan and helps to communicate their value to the customers across the country. Hello, Fabian.
Hello, and thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Tatiana, for having me.
Thank you very much. So, Bill, could you please briefly introduce Hanan Solar to our participants today? So, tell us a little bit more about your company and your role in the solar industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Hounen Solar, we're an American PV module manufacturer. We have our main factory in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and our headquarters and office over in Chino, California. Our factory in South Carolina currently is a 1 gigawatt annual factory. So we have a capacity for 1 gigawatt of PV modules manufacturing here in the US annually. We have plans to expand that soon to 2 gigawatts and also plans to bring on our cell production hopefully by the end of the year to allow us to have US domestic cells for the PV modules as well.
Yeah, that sounds great, and that what actually reflects the current situation that more and more brands are starting orienting toward bringing the production in the US. And this actually brings us to the main topic of our conversation today. Could you please briefly explain the current US tariffs on imported solar panels and components? Like, what is the structure, how it works basically? In simple
Sure.
words. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this year there's been kind of an increased emphasis on tariffs with the new administration. Largely speaking, across the board, there is a 10% tariff for all imports. And we've been feeling the impact of that for a bit now. And then in terms of other countries, I mean, the tariffs can vary quite a bit. Some have very few above the 10%, some have some pretty substantial ones. So, currently it can cause quite a bit of price fluctuations for components, for other modules coming to the United States. But with manufacturing in the U.S., an appropriate component stockpiles, manufacturers here can help mitigate those tariffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And in general, so me personally, being closely working with inventory every day, just since the beginning of this year, I've been, witnessing those swings like up and down prices, just immediately reflecting the latest news on the tariffs. So, what is your vision of the situation? Like, how are these tariffs are going to impact the overall cost of solar this year and going further?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely some upward price pressure on PV modules and PV module components and some of the other components for solar systems, the inverters, the racking, and things like that. I don't think it is very dramatic. I don't think we're going to see some major price shocks this year. But given the dramatic nature of this administration's tariff policies, that could change. Some of these policies were put in place rather rapidly, and as I mentioned, rather dramatically. So that could change. The way things currently stand now, we're probably seeing a small increase from the beginning of the year in terms of pricing in the overall market. But that could change. If the administration is not happy with the progress of the tariffs, it's possible that they increase.
Do you think it's going to impact the domestic production as well, or only those products which are being imported from overseas?
I mean, it does have an impact on both because, a lot of the PV modules, there's different bills of material. They have different levels of domestic content within them. So there are imported components in all PV modules throughout the United States, even the ones being made here. Nothing is made 100% in the US. So there will be, some impacts on that. But, one of the things that we've tried to do is to have a very good supply of the raw materials here in the US to help customers mitigate some of those tariffs. So we still have quite a bit of pre-tariff materials to manufacture modules here in the United States to help mitigate the impact of the cost from the tariffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at some point they're going to, just run out of stuff. Yeah, and it's going all to come to an end. Right. So could you please briefly explain to our audience about the domestic content, because the term is very ambiguous, I would say. So it's quite obscure, like what is really implied by domestic content.
Of course. So the domestic content, that will be, how should I put it? That more ties into some of the tax incentives, not as much with the tariffs, because depending on the level of domestic content, the percentage of domestic content in the modules, that allows for projects to qualify for bonus tax incentives. And there's different levels of domestic content required, and different there's different percentages that'll be required depending on the type of project it is. So it gets a little bit complicated. Mm-hmm. But simply put, if there's a certain level of domestic content over the whole project, not just on modules, but racking, inverters, other equipment on the project, if they can hit certain percentages, then they'll be able to apply for some bonus tax credits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and giving this context with the domestic production plus tariffs plus ITC, which is also going to come to an end. Do you think there are going to be more US brands emerging these years?
In terms of, like a consolidation in the industry?
At some points, yes, and maybe some brand new brands just deciding to start their business against what is going on in the global market.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some good incentives for from the manufacturer's side in terms of actually setting up manufacturing facilities here in the U.S. So that, combined with what's going on in the market, I think we will see some more U.S. manufacturing here in the U.S. I know there's talks of more investment from different players in the market to have operations here or investments in operations here. So I think we will still see an increase in U.S. manufacturing for PV modules and other solar components.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, and you are in a very, interesting position, because I know that you have your modules produced in the United States and overseas. Do you know, like from your from other manufacturers which produce their solar panels overseas only, how do they react to what is going on? How does this situation impacts them? Because they might be more vulnerable to what's going on compared to Hounen Solar.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, it really depends on what country they're manufacturing from, too. As I mentioned before, some countries have more dramatic tariffs than others. And, the countries that are impacted heavily, what we'll probably see if they're not manufacturing here in the US already, they're probably eyeing or having plans for a US plant. They're also probably shifting some of their manufacturing to some other countries that are a little bit more tariff friendly. And that's been a common practice through the PV industry for quite a long time. So I think we're going to see quite a bit of that with this current administration.
Right, but it's just always looking for the a new country for production, but you can never guarantee it's going to be under tariffs like tomorrow. So it's
Correct.
more about.
It can change. It can change rather quickly, and there's a lot of policies and tariffs and things that can pop up rather quickly to target other countries. So it's very important to plan that strategy out to make sure that the customers and installers aren't seeing heavy price increases. They have to be able to trust that manufacturer is going to be able to reliably supply the modules at a fairly steady rate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just additionally to what Bill is saying, I think we should consider all to read more about the communication that the big companies and news are sending to the end consumer, because sometimes communication can be broad, and you have to make sure to investigate and see who's really trying to push forward to investing in the US. And because there are a lot of fake news, and there are also different channels where people just read one news and they just believe that what's happening. So we need to make sure that we create and we send a message about us being a real company, and about us actually producing in the States.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So just the messaging the company, any brand has over the internet, just in general in the industry, is very important. It shapes the vision, yeah, the portrait of it, and yeah, brings the real value it can give to their customers. Yeah, and that actually brings us to one of the, I would say, most frequent questions our customer support team gets from the customers. It's about the difference of US made solar panels versus overseas made solar panels. Are US made ones superior in quality to the ones imported from abroad, or there is no difference at all, except for the price, of course?
Sure. So I can speak on our manufacturing process. This may vary for different manufacturers, but so having the experience of manufacturing overseas and also manufacturing our products here for the US market, we have the exact same bill of materials for both. And since they're both destined for the US market, we have to have them held to the same stringent standards that is placed in the US for all products. So our manufacturing process, our testing standards, quality assurance standards, the bill of materials that's actually going to the modules, our 550 watt module overseas versus the 550 watt module here in the US, it's largely the same exact module. It follows the same process. It's so we have stringent standards for both overseas and domestic production because we want quality production across the board. We don't want one to be superior to the other and the other one seem inferior. We want all of our products to have the same level and same standards.
And have you seen any shift towards US made solar panels since the beginning of this year from your customers, or is it more balanced across the board?
I mean, I think there is an increase in demand for the US modules for a few reasons. Obviously, for depending on the bill of materials, if the customer needs a custom level of domestic content, We have the capability to do that here, and obviously that has to be done within the U.S. So there is a demand for that. There are people that need U.S.-made modules for government projects. So our modules, even a U.S. assembled module with no domestic content, still in 2025, I think that the Department of Energy is going to be ending that extension waiver at the end of 2025. But a U.S. assembled module with imported components still qualifies for government contracts and where they require the Buy America type modules. And the pricing with the tariffs, we've seen the price difference between U.S. assembled and overseas production. That price difference has decreased a little bit. So the price to get a U.S. assembled module, it's not that much more expensive than it was previously. The price difference isn't as great. So if people would prefer to have a U.S. made module, made in a U.S. factory, assembled by U.S. workers, they don't have to pay as much of a premium for it as they did previously.
I see. And you mentioned also domestic content. So I do know that you have like a range of panels assembled in USA. So you should have also have the ones with domestic content, or yeah, right? So
and I can, so on that front too, as it currently stands, we do have the capability to build out domestic content modules. At the current time, just because our cell factory is just starting to come online, and we reserve that for kind of large scale projects because they're all custom assemblies off the assembly line. But as we get into closer toward the end of this year and moving into next year, we will have some more product lines available in stock for distribution with domestic content.
And like, if it's already known, if it's not a secret, what is the exactly domestic content? I mean, in your panels, like what particular components are they?
So as it stands right now, when we have a large scale customer who needs, when I say large scale, I mean, a project's maybe 10 megawatts or bigger, they may need different levels of domestic content. So that might mean, because each component will give a certain percentage of domestic content. So that means like the frames, the glass, the backsheet, the junction boxes, the encapsulant, and there's many other components too. But each one of them gives its own unique level of domestic content. And customers will come to us and say, we need a certain percentage, and we'll add up the components that achieve that percentage, and we can build that bill of materials for them. The big thing will change when the cells come online, because domestic cells add a very, very large percentage to the PV module. So depending on the type of install, you could get anywhere between, I think it's about 30 to 40% of the domestic content achieved just through the cells alone. So once you have domestic cells, you can largely get most of the domestic content from that. And as time goes on, and pretty soon we will start rolling out more production lines with more domestic content, so it will become more widely available, not just for the custom projects.
Right. So now it's like purely tailored to particular customer needs.
Correct. Yeah. So it would be large scale customers who need to fulfill a certain percentage. But as we increase the production of the cells, it'll become more widespread and more available in the market.
Right. Just to wrap up this part of, US assembled versus overseas made solar panels. So can we say that the warranty, like efficiency, longevity, like one-to-one, like everything just identical and the same, or there is still any difference?
Correct. So each product line that we have the same warranty, same efficiency, same specifications. If you pull the data sheets up side by side, you'll see that the equivalent product from the overseas factory versus the U.S. factory, they're going to be identical. Same measurements, same electrical characteristics. So it'll be the same.
Right, I see. So let's move towards, market trends more. So given the tariffs and mostly this ITC coming to an end just next year, do you think the solar industry in general is going to still grow as it's been doing over the last, decades, or is going to, just slow down a bit? And the second question to that, whether like the manufacturers are going to catch up with this demand to bring their manufacturing facilities to the States. So what are your forecasts here?
Sure. Okay, so for the first question about the growth of the solar industry, um, you know, uh, being in this industry for quite a while, I kind of, make an analogy. If you look at like the S&P 500, it's always going. There's always fluctuations. There's always ups and downs in the short run. But if you look at it long term, it's always trending upward. And as
Mm-hmm.
long as I've been kind of monitoring the solar industry, it's a similar trend. So if you look at it year after year after year, it's growing and growing and growing, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe it'll continue to do so, which is really good. But policy decisions and different changes in the market, obviously have some impacts, and I think that it will solar installers will have some challenges this year and next year. There's a lot of people, either their projects, they can't get it completed within the deadlines that are set forth with some of the new bills, or
Mm-hmm.
they're really trying to rush to make sure that they meet the deadlines. So I think that installers need to navigate that carefully, and keep in close contact with the manufacturers and the other partners they have on these projects to make sure that they meet all the new requirements, they meet all the new deadlines. So I think it's very important for people to keep on top of the news, watch it very carefully so they can make the best decisions. And then can
Mm-hmm.
you repeat the second question for me?
Yeah, the second one was just if we state that the industry is still going to maybe a bit slowly, but rise over these years, will the manufacturers have enough capacity to move their manufacturing facilities to the US? Because given those restrictions, it might be hard to fulfill that demand the industry is going to
Yeah,
generate.
so I know there's going to be, and there currently is, and there will increase the demand for U.S. Assembled and domestic content here in the U.S. I know a lot of manufacturers are rapidly trying to deploy factories. One of the great things about solar is that you can deploy these factories rather quickly. I know it may feel like a long time to try to get a factory online, but within a few years, we've seen pretty much all the major module manufacturers, set up some sort of manufacturing effort within the U.S. And you look back a few years prior to that, it was, um, there was only a handful. So
Mm-hmm.
we've seen a rapid deployment of U.S. factories for PV modules, and they come online rather quickly. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that in the short run, we probably will see demand overtake supply, but I think we will catch up to that supply sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's really good to know. Um, yeah, and yeah, actually, yeah, we have there's a couple of questions from people listening to us. So if you don't mind, I can share it
Of course.
right now. So Michael's asking, has the manufacturing tax credit been changed or stayed the same, and when does that expire? So if you can answer this question.
I don't remember the specific dates off the top of my head. I know they, with the new bill that just passed and the Trump administration, there are some increased restrictions with the manufacturing tax credit. So I don't have the specifics off the top of my head, but I know there are a few resources out there where they list out the specific details about the manufacturing tax credit. And perhaps we can share them after the webinar
Mm-hmm.
to share some of
Mm-hmm.
those resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, so it's very important to stay on top of the news, especially now when everything like changes every day, every minute. Um, right. And again, given those rapid changes, there is a phrase like there'll never be a better time than now, but customers keep asking whether it's worth going solar now or should they wait. So what would be your advice here?
Yeah, I think if it's a residential solar case, I think if you're kind of on the fence with putting solar up, I think now is probably a very good time. With the tax credits coming to the end, and questioning, if they're going to ever come back or if they're going to be extended. I don't think that's guaranteed at all. We probably will see, again, not dramatic, but we'll probably see some positive upward pressure on pricing. I don't expect,
Mm-hmm.
components or, module inverter or racking pricing to come down anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are on the fence and it's something that you're very close to deciding on, to make sure that it goes in before the end of the year and meets all the deadlines. Obviously, you want to check to make sure that you qualify for all these credits before rushing. But if you're on the fence for solar installations, you should have some urgency in trying to deploy it and have something installed.
Mm-hmm. Right, completely agree. I believe this ITC initiative has been a hefty part of, what made going solar really cost efficient and,
Right.
at least viable for people. Yeah, so I believe if there is an opportunity for anybody to go solar till the end of the years, have their installation deployed, it's definitely high time to do so. So, right, this is the right thing to do it right now. Yeah, and so there is been much of uncertainty and like it's like in the air about the pricing, about the policy. Like, what is your strategy as a manufacturer? Like, do you like quickly react to the changes, or you like take your time, to see how it's going to develop, and like what is your approach here?
Sure. I mean, I think we try to act with a little bit more urgency. We try to, again, just like everybody should, we try to monitor, the policy decisions very carefully. We try to have strategies in place prior to them actually being enacted. So when things do go through, we're able to act swiftly. Regarding the tariffs, one of the strategies we've had is obviously, making sure we have as many raw material supplies here in the U.S. So we can
Mhm.
continue to supply pre-tariff pricing for a lot of our PV modules and products.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, we try to be as urgent as we can because I think sitting around and waiting in this situation isn't going to be a good solution.
Yeah, especially yeah, and the condition when you don't know whether it's going to be better or worse tomorrow. So you never know what to expect, right? Okay, and actually we have one more question. Diana is asking, what advice would you give to someone deciding to go solar right now? What should they look for beyond just price and wattage? So what are the uh, key decision
For
making points there?
Of course, for an installer, or I mean, like to have it installed on their home.
Yeah. So basically, again, given this context of tariffs, of the pricing situation, of course, price, makes a big difference, but
Mhm.
still, is there anything else we should keep in mind?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're doing your research, if you're having somebody install it for you, you really want to vet them and make sure that they, have quality references, they have a good reputation, pay attention to whatever sort of contract they give you. You want to make sure that the terms of the contracts are workable for you. There's a lot of installers out there that have some pretty challenging contracts and payment terms and things. So you really have to kind of weigh the cost to make sure that it's going to meet your needs and be financially viable. But again, too, I think it's just taking some time to educate yourself. Get the resources that you can to make sure you're making a good decision. One of the things too, I mean, you can always call up, your local distributors like A1, and talk to them, because I know you guys deal with a lot of customers all over the country, a lot of installers all over the country.
Right.
So kind of leaning on some of your suppliers and things like that to give you some advice, to give you some direction, that's another smart thing to do.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, and maybe to wrap up. Oh, just one more question before we lose it. Okay, Tim Joy is asking. Um, okay, he's asking to shoot you an email. So I believe you guys are going to talk later. So this is something, yeah, to look for a pre-commercial solution. By the way, so that's a good thing to point out. Do you think like the industry is kind of divided into the residential installations and commercial ones? And do you think this ratio of residential versus commercial installation is going to change due to, again, the context we alluded through?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the breakdown of the PV industry, the largest portion obviously comes from utility scale projects. In terms of commercial versus residential, with a lot of the tax credits kind of expiring or being stripped away, residential will be a little bit more challenging in the short term. I think that it's still going to be a very viable industry, and I think we're still going to see a lot more people go solar on their homes. That being said, I think there is a stronger financial case for commercial business to go solar. They have, sometimes especially for manufacturers and other companies that have very high demand costs or electricity usage, they may see a better financial benefit from solar than a homeowner might. But that being said, I still think the residential market, will still progress and still grow, even, if there might be some short-term dips because of certain policy decisions or changes in the tax incentives.
Yeah, right. Right. So I believe a good, you know, summarizing of our conversation today would be like a brief forecast for the next year from you, like from inside the industry. So what to expect in 2026, in terms of prices, tariffs. Do you have any ideas what's going to happen?
Of course, yeah. So in terms of tariffs, that's a little bit of a wild card. It all is going to depend. I think the Trump administration has been using the tariffs to push a lot of negotiations with other countries. Some
Right.
countries are, very willing to negotiate, and it seems like they're working out some favorable tariff terms and trade terms with the U.S. Other countries are pushing back or acting in a way that, the Trump administration feels might be problematic. So they've been getting hit with heavier tariffs. And that can change in a moment's notice. So that's a little bit hard to predict. I think the tariffs aren't going to go away anytime soon. So I think that little bit of price pressure we're feeling from the tariffs is going to remain. In terms of the way with the tax credits and things like that for commercial projects and larger scale projects, the timeline has been shrunk. So while they still had, the ITC and the tax credits that they had available lasted for a number of years into the future, that timetable has shortened. So now we're going to see a lot of people trying to get their projects deployed before those deadlines hit. So I think 2026 is going to be a very busy year for solar.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I completely agree. And just kind of a controversial question about prices. Prices always rise but never go down. So do you think once all this story slows down a bit with the tariffs, the prices are going to get back to the normal, or there will be just a new reality with the new prices on solar?
Sure. So, I mean, it's all going to really depend on supply and demand, and where those two meet. So, if manufacturers can't keep up with the demand, we may see an increase of pricing. But if that supply is steady, I think even with the tariffs, we may just see some modest price increases.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Okay, so thank you very much, Bill and Fabian, for this insightful conversation. I do know that we have installers, representatives of the industry with us today. So, guys, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them in the chat. Um, so yeah, something, yeah, I believe you have like a great opportunity to talk directly to the manufacturer, to representatives of the solar industry at this unstable and uncertain period of time, when it's important to, as Bill right noticed it, to be informed and be on top of it every day. So you have this great opportunity to ask your questions. So don't hesitate to use the chat to do so. In any way, after our webinar today, we're going to send the recording of the meeting so you can, just catch up with whatever you found interesting today, get some more insights you might missed. So
And
I
Tatiana,
believe.
I will add too, if you're able to, I can share some resources with you. I know some people were asking about the manufacturing
Right.
tax credit and some other incentives and things. I can share some resources with you that you can share with the attendees today. That
Mhm.
way they can reference that after the webinar.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Bill. Yeah, so we'll definitely do so. Michael's asking a question. Is there any good information on how high electric prices will rise? And does this make the PV without incentives more viable?
That's a really good question. I think in the US, it really depends on where you are based. So different areas, are going to have different policies, different grid structures, different production that, where the electricity rates, are going to vary quite a bit. For instance, I'm based in Texas. Electricity rates are pretty low. Other areas like California, sometimes those rates are really high. Uh, so, obviously the higher the electric rates are, and if there's, some uncertainty about where those prices are going to go or how high they're going to go, that definitely makes solar a lot more viable.
Right, even yeah, without this, tax incentive, still, we've been witnessing those increases in prices on electricity over the last year. So, um, right, I don't think they're going to be any lower than we've been seeing. Right. Okay. And one more question. Are there any local incentives or programs to help offset tariff-related price for contractors?
Yeah, so I would, we can share a link to it in some of the resources after the webinar. There
Mhm.
is a database out there. There's an organization called Desire. It's spelled DSIRE, Desire
Mhm.
USA. And they have a really good catalog of all the incentives for renewable energy. Um, so they list things out for solar, other renewable energy sources, and what the state, local, federal incentives are for residential, commercial, manufacturing. They have a really good database, and they also keep it very current. They talk about the deadlines and all the incentives. So that is kind of the first resource I point people to when they're curious about different incentives in their area. The other thing you can always talk to is your local, sometimes your city, your town, or the local utility company. A lot of times they may have some different incentives or tax credits or programs for going solar. So those are also some really good resources to check into locally about local incentives.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Bill. As you mentioned, right, we're going to share all the links with the attendees today to have the first-hand, information, the good information on what's going on in the solar industry today. So I believe we can wrap it up. Thank you very much again, Bill and Fabian, for being with us today, for having this conversation, energetic and really, really insightful. Um, yeah, let's see what the future is preparing for us, and hope to see solar industry on the rise as always.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Tatiana. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Enjoy your
Yeah.
day today.